live. YouTube's coming up now. All right, we are officially live on Facebook and YouTube. Welcome back to Training Talk. It's actually been a couple of months, but good to be back online for the December 15th, 2021 show. Last show for Training Talk of the year. What's happening, Deryck Poole?
I know much, man. You just said that and it just hit me. Man, we are almost in 2022.
I don't know what happened to the year.
I know.
We
Well,
had some.
you had an even more active hurricane season than I did.
Yeah, I mean it definitely got pretty messed up, here locally for a little bit. That's kind of what happened to, I believe it was the September show, or the end of August, September, right around in there. Yeah, September, because I didn't have internet, didn't have power or anything else. But it's honestly, you look around now and you would think that it never really happened, minus there's a lot less trees than there used to be. Still a lot of blue roofs, a lot of, holes in roofs, that kind of stuff. But driving down the roads, you don't have near the debris that we used to.
I help clean up things.
Clean it up pretty quickly. Yep, definitely so. So yeah, I mean, we are excited to have a show tonight, kind of doing a recap of different self-defense cases, encounters from 2021. We'll talk about a good bit of that tonight, but we'll jump into that here, in a couple of minutes. As always, we'll do our best to, pay attention to the comments. So if you're here tuning in, drop us a comment, let you know where you're coming from. But if y'all have questions or you want to chime in, on the stuff that we talk about tonight, feel free to chime in. Deryck and I were just together in Florida, St. Augustine, here. I think that was last week, right?
Yeah, this time last week.
Yeah, so this time last week. So, we were down there with the Personal Defense Network, had the film crew in town to be filming new content, some content to go out to all the public through the website. Some of it, is just geared towards the members only, whether premium membership or gold membership. Hopefully, if y'all are tuning in, you're a member. If you're not, why haven't you become a member yet? If you follow the links on the page, you get a discount for just tuning in to the show.
I'm actually trying to get to Facebook, where the live stream is. So if we get questions or anything, we can.
Good. Yep.
We can answer.
No, absolutely. But yeah, we've got all kind of new content. What's a recap? Of last week, some of what watchers or members can expect to see, in the coming weeks and months as new content. What kind of sticks out in your mind from last week?
You asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking
No,
you.
I'm sorry.
On the show.
I'm sitting here trying to figure out where is the stream on Facebook.
You want me to send you a link?
No, I'll find it here in a second. It's sort of like it's like, where's Waldo?
Always.
On Facebook.
If you've tuned in more than once to the show, then you've probably seen some of the technical hiccups that we have encountered at times. But yeah, let me see if I can go ahead and get that up.
I got it. Here we go. Stream on Facebook. Got it here right in front of me.
All right, good. I've got YouTube's up.
All right.
So between the two of us, we should be able to pay attention to everything. But yeah, no, what I was saying, it's what do you think that people should be paying attention to? Your favorite videos that came out of last week?
Last week, it might actually been the week before, but there was I'm sure you saw the incident, in I believe it was Texas, where that there was a child. There was like two parents. It seemed like custody, and like the child wasn't there, and somebody decided to bring a rifle out and fire a warning shot, and then ended up actually killing me.
Yeah, so that definitely would be one that we'll discuss when we get into the different cases from 2021 tonight. Always, remember, we like to thank the sponsor of the show, Primary Arms Online. They have been great, with supporting the show. They are currently running a Christmas sale. I was on the website a little while ago, and they're also offering for new users, first-time email submitters. You can get a coupon code for $20 off too. So as soon as you pull up the website, they'll bring up the email form, type in your email address and submit it, and you get that coupon code automatically sent out to the inbox. But they are the show sponsor tonight. Check them out. Check out the 2021 Christmas sale that they have going on. Also, 2022, coming up for next year. Deryck and I have been in communication the past couple of days. We're in the middle of, as well as Rob's, many of the contributors are right in the middle of planning out their schedules for 2022 and the 2022 PDN training tour. Many of y'all have joined us on the tour in the past. Hopefully y'all can join us again in the future for this coming year. But if you're interested in hosting, if you have a range, you work with a range, you've got a range that you believe that would be interested in hosting us, then, have them reach out. They can reach out to us directly on social media with Deryck Poole or Echo 5 Training, myself with Barret Kendrick or Bearco Training, or any of the other contributors. Rob Pincus is on social media as well. But if you're interested in hosting anything from one of the 1 or 2 day defensive handgun courses, defensive rifle classes, Deryck and I teach a lot of instructor development courses. Rob is in Reno, right now with some of the other team, and they're teaching a 3-day instructor development class in Reno, out at Reno Guns and Range. Great indoor range in the Reno area, if you've been out that way.
Right now, I think right now they're probably starting or finishing up the written exam, would be my guess.
Yeah, they probably are. That's a pretty intense 3 days. It's pretty intense. You hear 3 days. Most people think 8-hour days, but they're probably closer to 10 to 12-hour days. Especially once you include in, all of the breakout sessions that generally happen in the evenings to prep people for today, being the final day of exams and stuff. So yeah, if you want to join us on one of the instructor development classes, or I teach force on force. Deryck and I, teach them together at times. The force on force classes, as well as the instructor development courses, but all kinds of stuff all kinds of different instructors offering personal defense courses all over the United States and even abroad, throughout the PDN training tour. So if you have an interest in hosting, don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'll try to see if we can make things happen.
Yeah, and then we'll have the USCCA, the DSF instructor stuff should be hitting the calendar here pretty soon. We're just talking to Justin over there at USCCA. So once we get them those dates, they'll be going out up on their website real soon here.
Yeah, absolutely. Know right off the bat, there'll be opportunities for that class in multiple locations in Florida, as well as my home state, Louisiana. I'll have one pretty quickly early this year. We're already working with host in Texas. Likely we'll be back in California, in the coming months, and numerous other states around the country, to where at some point, you should be able to jump in one within, reasonable driving distance or, quick flight away to be able to get into it. But yeah, absolutely. The 2021, it's obviously at the end of the year. A lot of times we like to do kind of recaps on, what is your favorite gun, your favorite piece of gear that you saw, get released in the past year. And, that I'm saying that to you, Deryck Poole, but also, saying that to everybody tuning in tonight, that, what sticks out in your mind that you're like, well, finally, something cool came out this year. Or was there anything at all? Obviously this has been last couple of years have been pretty unique. SHOT Show's coming up next month. We'll talk about that here in a bit, but this past couple of years have been pretty unique. But what sticks out to you? Anything?
Yeah, man, I'm really trying to think. And like, there. What was the? Can't think of the name right now. That Glock. It was sort of like the Glock clone, but we were just with Rob with it.
Oh, the shadow systems.
Shadow System. That was pretty neat. You know, I we I put like 2 or 3 magazines through it. It shoots like a Glock, but I have a couple of guns done by Boresight. And I guess that's sort of the market that they're trying to go after. That custom gun. So you have the ability to do a lot of changes yourself, back straps, and a lot of the undercuts and stuff already there. Um, that was pretty cool. Other than that, man, like it's been with the ammo and stuff, it's been like real thin. I personally haven't seen a whole bunch of stuff, but then again, I'm not like this big gear guy. I'm like get the job done with the bare minimum, counter ambush stuff.
Yeah. No, and honestly, I'm the same way, as well. I always, I'm not a collector. I'm someone that, if I have something that's sitting in the gun safe that is not getting used and doesn't really serve a purpose, to me, it's almost like a boat anchor. It's like it's holding me down for some reason. It gets under my skin. It bothers me. So, if I see something that's sitting, I'm like, wow, I haven't touched that in 5 years. I don't know whatever I'm going to do with it. Then, all of a sudden I go drop it off and let it get sold on consignment at the local gun shop or something. So I don't view myself as a collector. Most of my guns, whether it's hunting guns or personal defense firearms or stuff that I use to raise my sons up with firearms, right? But that's most of everything that you're going to find in my safe. Maybe the coolest thing that has happened in 2021 is that ammunition is actually starting to come back to the shelves. That I had a student that reached out to me earlier and was like, man, check out this website. They've got every caliber in stock right now. And so that is a good thing that we're finally starting to see the ammo coming back. I spent some time as well last week with the shadow systems, and ultimately, you kind of said it. Their target audience is the person that has in the past, typically they buy a Glock handgun or they buy a modern striker fired semi-auto, and they don't just settle for the $600 out of the door package that comes with it. They want to change a lot of the features. Maybe they change the sights. They want to put a threaded barrel on it. Want to put suppressor height sights because they want to thread a suppressor on it. Or have different customizations, with the barrel themselves or the frame, the flat bow trigger. Right? You start adding all these different, features in to that $600 gun, and all of a sudden it's well over $1,000 gun. And so where Shadow Systems is, trying to fit, what they offer, into the market is just that. They wanted to have all the customizations already built into the firearm. So when you walk out the door with it, you're paying a little bit more than that $600 fee. But when you walk out the door with it, you don't have to do anything to it. And so, yeah, I mean, they're nice guns. They're definitely fancy guns. I like shooting. Like you said, you've got your bore sight solutions. It's been customized literally to your hand, to where your grip is molded towards your hand. And it's got a pretty good feeling over stock. But, for the person that's not wanting to go into the different directions to start, making those changes to make it fit their hand, then, the Shadow Systems models may be exactly what they're looking for. So that was, that's been the first time that I was able to get some trigger time behind it. So like you said, they shot good. It shot like a customized Glock, more or less. Over the past year,
the slide on it's kind of cool. The way it's already pre-milled, and it has the various pre-tapped hole patterns to match, some of the more popular RMRs and enclosed red dot systems out there, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's just it. It did, it's got a little bit almost wider of a channel cut out for the optics to where it fits a larger variety. And I think even it fit really well. One of the optics one of the Steiner optics that we had tried out on it, last week also. So yeah, check it out if you haven't seen them. It may be something that you find an interest in. I don't really know that there's been a single piece of gear that I'm like, woohoo, 2021, I'll never forget it, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I like Glocks, right? I get a lot of Glocks, a lot of different colors, and Glock 17s. Like the Lipsy's P80 special came out. I got my hands on one of those, but that's not personal defense. It's retro and it looks like a original Gen 117 in a cute little box. Other than that, there's like maybe I'm missing something, but I haven't come across much of anything else.
Yeah, I guess one trend that I have noticed that's becoming more prevalent, in 2021 it seems like, and even I guess trailing over from 2020, would be the mid-size conversion size firearms that kind of blend the home defense handgun with the concealed carry firearm. Your single stack varieties that are now coming in a larger size, but yet still single stack. Like the SIG P365 or the Glock 48. Obviously, those have been out a little bit longer. But you've got the Smith & Wesson M&P Shield Plus model that fits into that category. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that Springfield, they brought back the 4.0 version of the Mod 2. I could be completely wrong on that, but I know they discontinued that 4-inch barrel for a couple of years, but I believe I saw something come back. And it's definitely a trend that I like. And I work with a lot of different shooters, and some of those obviously are more advanced shooters, and some of those are never shot before. And I feel, especially in the category of just learning how to shoot or just getting into defensive shooting, when I'm not trying to lead people in a different direction, but I provide them guidance, education, and opportunities or options. I find that especially people that don't have the larger hands like I do are really preferring those single stack designs, because one, they can get their hand all the way around it pretty well, but two, it's something that can be concealed, but yet you still have the somewhat of a decent capacity with 10, 13 rounds or 15 rounds with a shield arms mag for the Glock 48, right? So you still have that 10 to 15 round capacity. So easily we could consider that something that would work well for concealed carry or home defense, with not giving up too much by going to it. And so I do like that trend, and I think that that's where more and more manufacturers are going to go. I think that even in the coming years, what we're going to see is a single stack version of a service size firearm. Maybe like a single stack version of the Glock 17 or something, to where you still have a much higher capacity, but smaller to where it fits the hands, as well as it still conceals very well because it sits close against the body.
And you almost have that now with the Glock 48 with the shield arms mags.
Yes, absolutely.
It's what, 15 plus 1 in the chamber?
Yep, 15
17 plus 1 with the Glock 17.
Yeah, and that's if I'm carrying my 48, that's the route I go. I think that when it comes to reliability, the Shield Arms mags have definitely proven that they are just as reliable as the original equipment, assuming that you change the magazine catch out to a metal one, so that you're not wearing out the magazine itself.
And even that, I was waiting a little while. Because that was something I was messing with in 2021. Not like it was new in 2021, but I was messing with it, and it took me a little while to get that metal magazine catch. And I literally was like, "All right, well, let's see how long this gun can handle doing reloads." I probably got through a couple hundred reloads of actually like shooting the gun on the range and like dropping mags, reloading, and the polymer one still didn't fail. So
Yeah.
even that would take a while before that fails from that metal on polymer contact.
Yeah, I think a lot of times it's we are preventing the potential problem, not necessarily the problem that's going to happen this week, kind of thing. I
Yep.
definitely I did change mine out when I purchased the metal magazines because I don't want the opportunity for failure. May not fail in the next few 100,000 rounds. But I don't even want to wait till it does fail because at the end of the day, it is a personal defense tool.
Yep. Very true.
Yeah, we're going to talk about a few different self-defense cases, from 2021. Hopefully, you'll get an opportunity to chime in on some of it. Something to remember, is that as smart as Deryck is, I don't think he has a background in law, right? You're an attorney, Deryck?
Absolutely not. And I don't play one on the internet.
Yeah, nor do I. So if you're looking for legal advice, you're not going to find it on the Training Talk Show. Go find an attorney, for that kind of stuff. But in looking at these different cases, I do think that there's, some solid lessons, to take from all of them. And some of the cases that have happened have had a tremendous amount of media attention, for obvious reasons over the past year, just like every other year, right? And one of those cases was the Kyle Rittenhouse case, and I think that we'll go ahead and kind of jump into that and talk a little bit about the Kyle Rittenhouse case and maybe some of the trial as well, over the years. I think that when I say that name, Kyle Rittenhouse, most people, especially if you're tuning into this show, you're going to recognize that name. It would be hard to not know, his name in 2021 because you've seen it in so many different places. Whether it's watching the news or social media or wherever else that somebody's eyes and ears have been open the past years. It has earned itself a tremendous amount of media space, right? Kyle Rittenhouse. This goes back to a time where there was a lot of demonstrations and protests that were taking place, in the streets. Ultimately, in the days leading up to it, there was different destruction in the area. He was not a resident of the state of Wisconsin. However, geographically, he's like right there, right? He's a underage resident of Illinois, but he's geographically, I forget what it was, but like 15 miles away from the area, so not far away. But Deryck,
Didn't he have family that lived in the area though?
yes, yeah, I believe he also worked there, right? So I mean, he definitely had community ties. It wasn't like he just out of the middle of nowhere ended up there. He definitely had some ties to that community. And ultimately, the night of the incident, he was carrying a medical kit to try to act as a medic to help people out that got injured, while at the same time was open carrying a rifle, where he had it for self protection, self preservation, or to be able to prevent the destruction of property, at the dealership that he was kind of, more or less stationed at, where that was his base, his operating base at that point that night, with some other friends also in the area. With the rifle, let's talk about that to start. Before we even get to exactly what happens, do you have any thoughts on him open carrying the rifle, at the demonstration?
I mean, my advice is, don't open carry. Like if your only option for personal defense is open carry, then open carry by all means. And before I even get into this, do I think open carry should be legal everywhere in the United States? Yes, I absolutely do. I 100% believe that everywhere should be constitutional carry. But when it comes to using a gun to defend yourself, you know, in an environment like that, it's almost seen as a provocation, and that's what they were trying to prove. Now, it was his legal right, so he was not breaking the law and he wasn't doing anything wrong. Would I have been there? I can tell you with probably 98% certainty, no. If Deryck was around that area, I would not have bothered to be there with a rifle.
Yeah, and I think that's just it, right? I'm a huge supporter. I think that whether you're wanting to conceal a firearm or you're wanting to carry a gun in the open, where people can visibly tell that you're carrying a firearm, I believe that that is ultimately a constitutional right. Obviously not all states agree with with me on that. Some look at open carry as a right. Some look at concealed carry as a privilege. Some look at it all together, as a privilege. He wasn't old enough, to be able to get a concealed carry permit. So we do know that, right? So he doesn't have the option, to be able to carry, maybe that handgun concealed in that encounter. But ultimately, I think that it is important to point out, had the community not been able to tell that he had a firearm, because he was able to carry that gun concealed, then highly likely we would not know who Kyle Rittenhouse is. There's other variables that could come into play, but it probably would not be making the news because he would not be getting pushed into corners or provoked or being intentionally placed in danger in the way that he was with the rifle. And so that is part of it, is that there are times that people will make arguments that, well, if I'm carrying the gun in the open, then who the hell would mess with me, because it's a deterrent. And it can be a deterrent. The problem is that there are a lot of people just don't care. They don't care. They're not scared of the firearm. They don't believe that that the outcome that came from that is necessarily even the outcome at all anyway. And and this is what we see with law enforcement who carries guns daily, and yet assaults on law enforcement are just going up and up and up, right? And so that I think that is something to that we do have to recognize, is that especially in that kind of encounter, that having that firearm concealed where you still have the ability to be able to protect yourself may be the better direction to go. But like I said, he's is underage, doesn't have the ability to be able to get that concealed carry permit, so it wasn't an option for him. But he did have options that night.
Yeah, I mean, like you just said it, like in that environment, and we see it all the time, people aren't necessarily afraid of the gun, otherwise they wouldn't be charging at people with a gun. And on top of that, the environment, emotions get involved, and emotions a lot of times override their logical thinking and do things like charge somebody with a gun with the prove it, let's see you actually use it, thinking the person is not going to use the gun, use the weapon, the bat, whatever it could be.
Yeah, no, definitely so. And I think that something important to talk about is, do you want to be there in the first place? And this is where you have to kind of figure out exactly what you're trying to achieve in life. Exactly what your goal is. I'm a big believer in defining goals, defining plans, and making sure that our actions are in line with both of those. And ultimately, if someone leaves the house and they truly want to make it back home safely, that night, to be with their family, to hug their loved ones, then you have to recognize you probably shouldn't have been there in the first place, because of the risk alone, especially with the risk, with carrying the firearm, is that may be that area that you just want to avoid. You don't want to be there. And I don't think that Kyle Rittenhouse thought that when he went there that night that would have been the outcome. Not even really a potential outcome, right? Is that was so far down on the risk radar that I don't think that he was concerned about that, especially when you look at it through the eyes of of a teenager, a 17-year-old.
Yeah, that's another big part, right? A teenager. I mean, I know a lot of teenagers that are very mature and make good decisions, but you're still a teenager, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, there's still plenty of research that shows that the ability to really reason with yourself and to see that what comes from here, without cognitively sitting there thinking about it, as people don't really develop the ability to reason in their brain, especially as males, until young 20s. And so, I mean, I look back on my own life, and yeah, at 17, I made some pretty bad decisions in life, and as we would expect, out of someone that age. So I don't even, like I said, I don't even think that was any sort of percentage wise that you would be able to tally up on what kind of risk that he was facing, as far as his perception was when he went there that night. But yeah, I think if you want to say I want to be home safe, like I've got wife and kids, right? And if I'm wanting to protect or wanting to be home with my wife and kids, then it's probably best not to put yourself into that environment in the first place.
but so we both agree on that fact. Like I wouldn't have been there. And I get it. There's some cases that or some things going on in the world that you're like, what, I've had enough. I'm standing up. I'm gonna go protest. And by all means, that's one of the things that makes our country great, right? We have the ability to go out and protest and do things to make our voice heard. But is that in that case, he wasn't there to make his voice heard. He was protecting property as well as providing aid, like first aid or something of that nature. That was his intent. Okay, good for you. For wanting to do good. But like the case itself, bottom line, was he guilty of murder? Absolutely not. He was correctly found innocent, and it was actually a pretty important case when we look at it in the grand scheme of things for people worried about personal defense and having the right to protect themselves and their loved ones. And that case, I think, showed pretty clearly that yes, you are allowed to protect yourself from bodily harm, mortal bodily harm or injury.
Yeah, and that's it. As much as he shouldn't, have been there necessarily, protecting property, at the end of the day, it doesn't change any of it. It was still self-defense, and we saw that from the first videos that were coming out in the first 24 hours. Is that here's someone he's trying to get away, he's trying to flee, he doesn't want to use the rifle, but he keeps getting forced, to use the rifle, and the bad decision leading up to that, doesn't negate self-defense. I mean, I live in the New Orleans area. Now, granted, I'm 45 minutes away, but night and day differences in regards to some of the violent crime that parts of New Orleans may see. But if you've got somebody that has too great of time on Bourbon Street one night and they're walking around by themselves at 3 o'clock in the morning, stumbling, in areas that have a much higher crime rate, where a lot of those attacks take place when people are by themselves and completely inebriated, and all of a sudden they get attacked, whether physically or sexually assaulted or whatever else. We're not going to sit there and blame that person and blame them as a victim, and that they're not a victim because they got drunk and put themselves into a more risky situation, right? They're still a victim. That's not going to change any of that. Yeah, there's bad decisions leading up to it, but the person's still a victim. And he had some, granted we can argue and going back and forth on, how poor of a decision it was to be there. But at the end of the day, even if it was a bad decision, it's still self-defense. He's still trying to get away, still trying to flee. And even during the trial, we saw the same thing as well. As there was a lot of focus on the third encounter, I guess if you want to call it that, that evening, that night, when he shot the person and only wounded him. Where I believe the individual had made an argument that he was trying to to more or less capture or to disarm Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah, but but he didn't get shot though until he actually pointed the gun at Kyle Rittenhouse. Even then,
Right, and that's reading just from the trial itself. The defense attorney says, so when you're standing 3 to 5 feet from him, with your arms in the air, he never fired, right? And Gage had said just that. He said correct, is that here he is, he's running up on Kyle Rittenhouse. He doesn't have a gun pointed at him, and Kyle Rittenhouse is not shooting at him. And so the defense attorney says that, it wasn't until you pointed your gun at him, advanced on him, with your gun. Now your hand is down with the gun, it's pointed at him. And that's when he fired, right? And, and that's just it. The person who said he was trying to disarm said, yeah, that's when he fired. He wasn't shooting at me until I pointed a gun at him. And, that's when Kyle Rittenhouse shot at that point.
Yeah. So.
And see, we see a lot of encounters that fall under similar umbrella. Certainly not, is big in regards to media attention, but just self-defense encounters where somebody may not make the best decisions, but they get forced to protect themselves, in different situations where it's still self-defense, right? So, maybe preventable if we can go back and change a couple of things about it, easily preventable, but, prior to that, preventable up to that point, but still the self-defense was forced. And so, we want to take what we can learn from it and also understand it's still self-defense.
So that one was self-defense.
What's that?
I said, so that one was legit self-defense.
Well, what about this next one?
Are we ready to talk about the next one?
Yeah, let's talk about the next one, because we put self-defense in the title, but not everything that we're going to talk about tonight comes down to self-defense.
Yeah. I'll let you pronounce the name.
Ahmaud
Arbery.
Arbery. Yep.
Yeah.
So he's a guy that jogs around his community. I think that the property where all of this took place, they may have had some theft issues in the past leading up to this. And so he's someone who is going inside of a construction site. And one of the neighbors of that site, the McMichaels, were more or less, they saw him going in there, and they thought that maybe he is the thief. We also now know that he jogged in that area and on camera went into the house numerous times, the construction site, right? And never took anything. It was on camera, so he'd never taken anything. There were also numerous other people that had been seen on camera, whether it was kids on bicycles that are just riding up, checking out, playing at the construction site, or other people checking out the home, to see the progress or whatever else, right? And that happens at times, right? When you have a construction site in a neighborhood, and I live in a neighborhood, and I've seen it plenty of times where there's a framed up house without doors or windows, and people want to go in. They want to go in and explore. Is it trespassing? Well, by definition, they don't have permission to be there, necessarily. But it's they're not there for any other reason. They're not there to steal, or they're not there for any other reason other than just kind of explore what's taking place. And so there's video on the property, that witnesses, Ahmaud, going, into that house a couple of times. But anyway, he's seen by other people in the area that think that he is the thief, and so they decide that they're going to make a citizen's arrest. And so he starts pursuing after him, and I believe it was two of them. They start pursuing after him, and then another neighbor gets involved. Well, the victim in this case was literally fleeing. He is trying to get away. And so now it's not just that they're even trying to hold someone that they found inside of their home at gunpoint or something like that. You literally have somebody running away and fleeing and trying to get away from them while three other people, are now chasing them. And, and I'm paraphrasing some of this, right? But, ultimately, you've got little pieces of video to kind of see what transpired, but they eventually catch up with him, and end up shooting him, and he ends up, unfortunately, dying as a result of it. And the three gentlemen, in that case, tried to make a self-defense claim that he was trying to attack him, at the time that they ended up shooting.
Right. I mean, let's be real here. So first and foremost, it's not your property. You're not a police officer. How about you just mind your own damn business and be a good witness first? All right. I'm not going to let somebody just walk into my name. I know the person who's having that house built, and they've had stuff stolen. Cool. All right. So now, for whatever reason, they're your friend or whatever. Be a good witness. They obviously had a cell phone because they recorded it. Why don't you just call the cops and just follow the guy and be able to point out where did the guy go and let the police handle it? Or if you want to be a cop so bad, go be a police officer. It's literally, like, in a lot of ways, just the reverse, in my opinion, of the Kyle Rittenhouse case, right? Arbery is Rittenhouse without a gun, with three guys attacking.
In the regards, he's fleeing, right? He's literally running away from them and trying to get away from the dangerous people. And yeah, I mean, you're exactly right in that. And like you said, you gotta, if you want to do the law enforcement stuff, you should have the uniform and the shiny badge that goes with that. To where it's easier for people to recognize that. But yeah, it's much better, to call the police, to provide them with good information, and that way, if your perception is wrong, no real big deal, right? You were wrong, you get embarrassed, maybe some other stuff comes from it, but ultimately people didn't die. But yeah, they did the exact opposite. Is they wanted to prevent him from leaving, and all of this was over property. I can't tell you how many cases that videos or cases that I've looked at over the years, where somebody ends up dead and the initial issue was property. And I can't imagine a time where it's worth dying for, something that cost $100 or $200, $1,000, or worth killing for.
And I get it, man. Like, I've had my house broken into before. I've had my car broken into before. I've had things stolen, and like, your blood boils, like, because the vast majority of people wouldn't go stealing and do the same thing to another human being walking the planet. So it really gets under your skin when you never do it. And I get the, you want your pound of flesh for it, but you got to look at the bigger picture of what's it going to do to your life in the long run. Like, even if you are completely in the right, just think of all the bad things that are going to come down the pipe with it. You have psychological effects. You're going to have to live with the fact that you took somebody's life or permanently maimed them for the rest of their life. You might,
and in this case, an innocent person's life, right?
Right. I mean, even worse, right? Even Kyle Rittenhouse, he's a young kid. He's gonna have to live with the fact that he had to use a gun to defend himself, in a legit personal defense situation. And who knows what other legal cases and things are going to come from that, right? Because once it hits the news, if for some reason it strikes some special chord in the news, then all of a sudden you have prosecutors at different levels that might want to start bringing different charges to try to get you, or to make their mark so they can pick up their next election or whatever it is. So, whenever possible, like, just stay out of it. Be a good witness. Mind your own business if that's the necessary piece.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different animal. If you want to step in and protect somebody's life, right? Understand what you're doing, by jumping in. Make sure that you have enough of the information and all that. But that's we're talking about property here, right? Even locally, we got a case locally happened back in 2011. A homeowner in New Orleans, hears somebody outside of his bedroom window, sees the person out in the yard. He goes out in the yard to confront the person, and the person makes an aggressive move towards the homeowner. The homeowner shoots, ends up shooting an unarmed 14-year-old. Now, clearly he didn't know the age. Clearly he didn't know he's unarmed. All he knew is there's a stranger that jumped a fence, was trying to get into his house, and was in his yard at the time he confronted him and wouldn't listen to the orders of the homeowner, even at gunpoint, right? And ultimately, he was arrested, for attempted second-degree murder, $100,000 bond, to be able to get out of jail. Ran into some work issues, had to sell his house. But a couple of years into it, the district attorney said, we're not going to pursue any, charges against him. Well, fast forward a decade later, and the unarmed 14-year-old that he shot ends up dying, last year. And a contributing factor to the death was the headshot. Whether it was infection or something that played into it, he dies 10 years later. And so literally a decade later, you've got a new district attorney in the city of New Orleans that, is deciding whether or not, to indict or to pursue charges for second-degree murder at this point. It's been upgraded, and so here it is over a decade later, and it's still chasing him all over property in the beginning. And so, property is, it's just not worth it. If you're going to step in and risk your life to protect someone else's life, that's one thing. Still understand what you're doing, but when we're talking about property, I mean, there's just not a reason. At this point, it's emotion. It's not any different than, my two sons, right? I've got one son, he goes over and does something to the other son. Well, the one who was the victim, wants to get back, wants to get revenge, wants to run across the room and punch him, right? Because that's what boys do. And so as the parent, I got to even explain, well, you want to walk across the room and punch that person. That's our emotions. We want to, you see someone stealing your stuff, you want to go over there and make that stop because it's a violation of our space. But at the end of the day, it's not worth it because especially you're bringing a gun into it. You've got the potential, you may die, somebody else may die, and the initial cause was all over property. So this is definitely one of those circumstances that should have been left to law enforcement, where the people that were ultimately charged and convicted, should have been acting as a good witness. I think that there were nine charges, and they were found guilty of all or most. Of them, depending on, which one it was. The Travis, who fatally shot him, was found guilty on all charges, which included, malice murder, 4 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of aggravated assault, false imprisonment, and criminal attempt to commit a felony, right? So he got them all. The other 2 guys, I don't think were found guilty on the malice murder. But certainly, they're going to prison. They haven't been sentenced yet. They'll be sentenced after the first of the year, But again, you've got somebody that lost their life. You've got 3 people that will now go to jail. No one's winning, right? There's not a winner in this situation. You got families that are going to be hurt all over with it, and all of it goes back to property.
And you brought up another point, right? If it is, say it is, you leave your garage door open, and because you're working in the backyard, and you walk out front, and you got a gun on, and you see somebody walking out of your garage with your stuff, and you decide I'm gonna stop them, and you pull your gun and tell them to get on the ground, and they get on the ground, and they have nothing in their hands, right? They dropped whatever it was they're stealing out of your garage, and they're laying on the ground, and you're sitting there holding them at gunpoint. What are you going to do if that person says, you know what, they're not a cop, I don't got a gun, and they decide they're going to get up and just run and book?
Yeah, and that's
right. They are not a lethal threat. Standing up without a weapon and running away from them, right? So anybody that watches us, that is the time you let them run and be a good witness. Maybe you get in the car and you sort of follow where they're going. I don't know. Or you just wait for the police to get there and you point in the direction. Hopefully you get some cameras around your house and they can catch them that way. But, just make sure that just because you've held somebody at gunpoint does not mean if they decide to get up and run away that means now I can shoot them because they're not listening to you.
Yeah. Even if you don't even have a gun, right? You got to go back to, is it worth even dying over? We had a lady, this was 2018, about the same time, I think it was November, maybe early December 2018, purse snatching. Somebody grabs her purse, runs. The lady chases after the guy. She is not going to have somebody steal her purse. And when she caught up to the guy picked her up, body slammed her, head into the concrete. She eventually, she didn't die instantly, but after a few weeks in a coma, the family ended up unplugging her right before Christmas. Clearly that was always the risk, but, we know that she didn't believe that's what was going to take place, but that's what happened. It all goes back, again, there's times you have to do things to protect yourself, or you have to do things to protect those people you care about. There's times that things can't be avoided, but intentionally putting yourself into a more dangerous situation, over the purse, over property is probably not going to be worth it. Got to make good decisions. Definitely got to make good decisions. I think the last story that we will probably talk about tonight, comes out of Colorado. This is more of protecting someone else, right? This is somebody who intentionally put his life in danger to protect the lives, ultimately, of other people. So this is our hero story. This is ultimately, you've got a guy that decides he wants to kill police officers. He's going to kill as many police officers as he can. And so, he sees a police officer in a parking lot. He pulls up, pulls his truck up. And I can honestly, let's see, I maybe even be able to share my screen and play some of this video. Let's see if I can do that. This is a good video that we can talk about a couple of things with. Just about getting there. All right, I think we have a screen share happening. Yep. So, like I said, this is Colorado. Now, you've got the actual shooting. Will be blurred out here, but in the circle and the highlighted area, you have our police officer, who is Officer Gordon Beasley, with the Arvada Police Department. And so he is walking away. Your gunman now gets out of the truck, running up behind him, with the firearm. And as he is running up behind him, eventually he ends up pretty close to him and yells to the police officer. And when he does, the police officer turns, and then at that point, he shoots, he kills, he ambushes the police officer. Unfortunately, the police officer never had a chance, to be able to respond or to really be able to do anything to protect his life. And so, like I said, unfortunately, he goes down. So now your gunman runs back to his initial starting spot of the vehicle and exchanges what I believe was a shotgun. Looks like a semi-auto magazine fed, but I believe it was a shotgun. So he exchanges that, for a rifle. And, now he starts headed back in the same direction that he was coming from. And, ultimately, he's headed towards people, right? He's decided he wants to kill today. So he's headed towards people. And over there, just on the other side of him, in that highlighted area, you'll see our Good Samaritan. The Good Samaritan, his name is Johnny Hurley. So Johnny Hurley witnesses this initial shooting, and he decides this point that he doesn't want this to happen, right? He knows that he has the skill level to be able to make this gunman stop doing the bad guy stuff. And so he takes out the gunman. There he goes. He hits the gunman. He goes down. But after he shoots the gunman, at this point you've already had a call go out to 911, about an officer down. And so you've got responding officers that you can imagine are coming from every direction possible right now, because a police officer has just been shot and there's an active shooter on the loose. And so after he drops the gunman, you can see that he's now approaching the gunman, and ultimately goes over there to secure the rifle, to be able to make sure the gunman does not have the ability to be able to harm more people. So he wants to take the rifle from the shooter. The problem with this is that after he grabs control of the rifle, this is when law enforcement is responding. Remember, they're coming in to an active situation. A police officer has been killed. There's reports of a gunman, and so the priority here is to stop the killer. And sometimes they're able to stop the killer with just their sheer presence because the bad guy's a coward and he gives up. Sometimes the bad guy is not, and wants to take out as many people as he can, until police kill him. And so a lot of times that's what it is that someone has to fight back. Now, in this case, our Good Samaritan fought back and stopped the shooter. But law enforcement responding doesn't know that. All they know is there's an active killer. And so when law enforcement gets there on the scene, there's the reports of the guy with the rifle, and they see our Good Samaritan, with the rifle in his hand, and unfortunately shot and killed him. And so here's a case where somebody stepped up. It's self-defense, or self-defense for somebody else. He stepped in on other people's behalves, probably saved several lives that day. And unfortunately died, from responding good people. And that we've talked a lot about this on the shows previously, is that ultimately throughout the U.S., you've got over 20 states that have some form of constitutional carry. You've got all states that have some form of concealed carry. You've got armed security guards, plus armed law enforcement officers. There's tens of millions of people throughout the country that can be armed on any given day. And so that's always a risk. And we talk, Deryck and I talk a lot about this in our classes, of that risk and even how to mitigate it in certain ways. And as good as Johnny Hurley did this day saving lives, it's that ultimately it was likely the picking up the gun that that changed the potential outcome of what it could have been that day. And I think this is one of these areas that one, you got to, it goes back to what I talked about earlier, is what is the goal? Ultimately, what are we trying to achieve in this encounter or achieve by your actions? And clearly he was trying to achieve no one else getting hurt, and we know that, right? And he was very brave and courageous to to put himself into that situation that day, rather than turning and running away, which have clearly would have been the safest option, right? But he put himself into that danger. And when does it make sense, to have to take control of a bad guy's weapons? When should you put your hands there?
Only if absolute, in my opinion, only if it's absolutely positively necessary. But even then, it's only to like get it out of reach so it's not useful. Like you want to do everything possible to not look like the bad guy to other concealed carriers, to law enforcement, to armed security, anybody else. You do not want to end up getting hurt or killed because all of a sudden somebody mistakes you for the bad guy.
Yeah, and we got to face the fact that it's you could do everything perfectly right and still, end up injured or killed because someone else's perception, wasn't accurate, right? But it was their reality, at that moment. But yeah, I mean, if you have to take control, then you have to take control. But ultimately, if you've got the tool of force and the bad guy is still doing the bad guy stuff, then do what you have to do to make the bad guy not do the bad guy stuff, right? But if you've got the attacker that is simply near that tool or near that weapon and they're not actively using it, then I think that you're putting yourself at more risk by even getting close to them at that point. And so, some of the active shooter schools would teach you to do things like throw a jacket over it or throw a trash can over it, that kind of stuff as well, to where it lowers the risk of somebody pulling onto a scene and seeing you near the gun kind of thing. It kind of hides it out of view a little bit and out of the control of others, at that point. But yeah, it's very unfortunate. It's an absolute. All three of these instances are definitely tragedies, and and ultimately, like I said, he did a lot of great stuff that day and probably saved the lives of numerous people. So he was a hero. There's no doubt that he was a hero. But I think that the one big takeaway from that would be that even if you do it all right, understand that people may mistake you as an attacker in that sort of encounter, or don't or take other actions, do other things to help change the perception of others.
And I mean, literally, he even if he didn't pick up that rifle, just having his handgun, who knows?
Yeah.
He could have done everything right and still ended up getting shot by the police officers.
Yeah, I mean it's happened numerous times with law enforcement on law enforcement, with civilians on civilians, with homeowners on their kids, because the homeowner is panicking, thinking they have an intruder in the house, and they see a silhouette, and and don't process the information properly before shooting, and all of a sudden learn that they shot their own family member, right? It's not any different. It's that someone's perception is real to them, and sometimes it's preventable, but many times it's not.
Yep.
So yeah.
But damn, we're ending on a low note.
What's that?
I said, well, way to end the show on a low note. Good guy getting
Yeah,
killed.
he's definitely he's definitely a hero, in what he did that night, or that day. Yeah, coming in, towards the end. Next month, we've got another special guest coming on, next month. Definitely an expert in his own field and whatnot. So we're excited to get him on. We'll have a description released on all of that, here in the coming weeks. Also next month is SHOT Show.
Is it still happening?
I don't know. I still have a plane flight.
So do I.
I think it's still happening. I hope it's still happening. It
I'm
would be
Googling.
good for the industry, I think, for it to happen. But as it is planned, both Deryck and I will be there in Las Vegas next month attending SHOT Show. We'll have cameras and microphones with us. I don't know if there's anything that you're like, woohoo, I want to see that, but we can get a closer look. Maybe do some video content on it if there is something that interests you there. Whether it's now or, during the show, you see something that really sticks out, you'd like us to take a closer look, don't hesitate to, to drop comments here if it's tonight or, reach out to us if it's during the show. But we'll try to bring you the latest and greatest on, what's worth talking about when it comes into personal defense from SHOT Show 2022.
Yep, that's cool. I just Googled it. I'm on the SHOT Show website, and the countdown clock is still going.
I think it's going to happen. I think if they would have canceled it, now we're within a month, ultimately, or almost a month. So I think if they're going to cancel it, I would have thought that they would have done it, but who knows? That certainly could change. Last year, it was canceled last year, right? So yeah, 2000. No. It was canceled this year. Sorry, last year, 2020, I was there. Yeah.
I was in the chair with the broken.
Yeah. I was going to say that was a time where, Deryck, had an excuse not to be there properly. I don't think you could have fit on a plane with your leg at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was canceled this year. So yeah, we're certainly excited to get back to see everybody and to run around doing the things that need to be done while we're there. Other than that, what else you have, D?
That's it, man. Yeah, I was, we got off track for a while training talk, so good to be back on it, get back on our regular schedule. It will have to be Wednesday nights though from here on out because I'm back in school and I got school on Thursday nights. So, or at least until June.
Yeah, so we'll be Wednesday, and let's see, somewhere. Let me pull it up, but I already have that date, lined up in January. So January 5th we'll be back, which is a Wednesday, and we'll be back live on that day, and then of course back again in February. We've got a couple of topics that we know we're going to be talking about in the next couple of months. But if you have something of strong interest that you don't think that we've covered yet, we haven't covered it well enough, or you would like to see us talk about it, don't hesitate to shoot us over your show ideas as well, or maybe that special guest that you would like to see us bring on that may be an expert on a topic that you'd like to learn more about that falls in training or falls into personal defense in general. But other than that, thank you for tuning in tonight. Hope y'all enjoyed this show. If we'll hang around for a couple of minutes, so if y'all have comments, don't be afraid, or questions, don't be afraid to drop them down in the comments. We'll try to pay attention to that. Other than that, you can reach out to us on social media. Deryck, Poole, Barret, Kendrick. Been great, Deryck. Have a good night.
You too, man.